So this time what I want to show you is how I prefer to construct a saw stool. Now you can never have enough saw stools. I've got a few out in the yard and always using them for everything from working to getting up to doing stuff on the ceiling. Um, you set them up as temporary trestles if you need an extra table. You just can't have enough. And it's really up to you how long you want to spend on constructing a saw stool. You can take your time and do it over a day and come up with a really neat job. If you only need one real quick, you can sort of knock it together in an hour or so. Um, Over my time, I've built a lot of saw stools, big ones, tall ones, long ones. But this is the preferred saw stool that I like to use. This one's ends up being 865 millimeters long, and it's 610 millimeters off the ground. Um, it's made up of one piece of 90, or starts as 90 by 45, but we mill it down to 90 by 40, about 900 long. We also need a piece of 90 by 35 for the stretcher underneath, or the stretcher, I guess you can call it, 800 mil long. 4 pieces of 70 by 35, which we mill down to 30 mil, 750 mil long for the legs, and a piece of ply, about 450 mil long, 200 mil wide. 12 mil sort of your minimum size. If you happen to have a bit of 18 mil, then there's no problems with using that. And of course, you're going to need a handful of screws to screw it all together, and that's all you need. So if you keep your eye out on the job site, you can probably get this out of a couple of throwaways. So let's get started. First thing we need to do is take our top, which is our 90 by 40. We gave it a standard size of 900 mil, but we need to cut it down to 865. So pretty simple process. Measure your 865, mark it, cut it off by whatever means you have available, and that's going to be the length of our top. Then need to mark in 150 mil from both ends. And now we need to go and establish our angle for our saw stool. So we're going to use the angle of 1 in 4 for this saw stool. So what that means, if I just square a line down my piece of ply, do this on a bit of scrap, or you could even do it on the top of your bench. This is going to give you a permanent reference for the angle. So all you have to do is square a line down there, break that up into 4 units. So in this case, this is actually drawn out of 50 mil units. So 50, 100, 150, 200. It could be 4 inches, whatever unit you want to break it up into. The bigger the unit, the better. And whatever unit you use going this way, you obviously need to use one of those going this way. So that's 50 mil in that direction. So I end up with 200 mil down there, 50 mil up here. So it's a 4:1 ratio. And when I join those lines up, this gives me my angle for every bevel on this saw stool. So I can take my sliding bevel, set that up to the angle, and now I've got my angle set up. I'm ready to go. Keep hold of this as a reference, because if you knock your sliding bevel, you need something to go back to make sure your bevel's right. So take the sliding bevel back to our top, and we want, this is going to be the top of our top. We actually want the bevel to be going back towards the outside of the top. So we put the sliding bevel on like that, and obviously we're going to draw a line down there, and that gives us the angle of our leg. Then we need to mark the width of the leg, and the easiest way to do that is actually get the leg, sit it against the line, running along the line, and then we can come around this other side, and just down the bottom here, we don't need it all the way through, just down the bottom, put a mark for the leg, like such. And then what we need to do is square that up to the top, and we can then square that across so that we can then set it out on the other side as well. So that's that all marked out. We then need to mark out for our little checkout. We're going to cut a little bit of timber out of here. That's going to be 10 millimeters deep. So we mark in 10 mil, and we can then cut that piece out. Pretty simple. So that's one done. Obviously we've got 4 legs, and we do the same on the other side. Make sure you get your angle heading towards the back. 10 mil deep again. Remove that. Go to the other end. Repeat the process. And our top has now got its 4 rebates for our legs. So now we can put the top aside and we'll work on our legs. So you actually need to work on the legs in pairs. So grab 2 of your legs, set them together like that. Grab your sliding bevel, make sure it's still at the right angle. And on the edges of our legs, we need to mark 2 opposite angles. So as close as you can to the top, give yourself a bit of room to actually maneuver the saw around. We're actually going to mark this leg. Just move my bar along. So we're going to mark that leg from that side, flip it over, and mark that leg from that side. So we're actually making a pair for either side of the top. So the angles on the edge are going to be opposite. The angles on the face are going to be in the same direction. So same angle down the face of that one. Around the other side, same angle down the face of that one. Now we need to separate it, just work on one. And whatever angle we have on this side of the leg, we need to repeat on the other side. So sliding bevel. And we can spin round and we can draw our angle down there. And then we also then need to transfer this line here around to the other side. And we should line up and should have one continuous line right around the top of the leg. And obviously we need to repeat that on the other piece. And it needs to get repeated on the other pair. So we have 4 legs marked up. So you should have 2 sets that look like that. Then what we need to do, we need to take one leg at a time, and from what I call the lower edge, this is our lowest corner, so from this edge, we need to mark 15 mil up the edge. What we're going to do is we're going to cut out a little bit of a checkout here, so that it actually sits around the top and provides some support underneath. So 15 mil in. Then you can grab your combo square and square down from that mark. And then what we need to do is we need to come down parallel off this angle, down at least the thickness of our top, and I always give it a couple of mil more for some reason, and I've never been able to work it out why. If you just go the thickness of the top, you always end up a little bit short. So thickness of the top plus 3 mil. So in my case, it's going to be 43 mil. And whatever angle is here, that's the angle of this line here. So we transfer that on. Then have to transfer that all the way around. So from here, we just repeat this angle is onto there. And same on this other side. Whatever angle is on the top of the leg gets repeated onto there, and we cut that out. Once again, whatever means you have available, it's most likely going to be a handsaw. So again, that process needs to be repeated on all 4 legs. Remember, start from the lower corner. We need to cut the high corner out. We can then go back to our top and line up our leg with the rebate where it's going to go, and we just need to mark out and clip off this little piece here. I prefer to run that off with a hand plane. You may wish to cut it off with a handsaw. We just need to clip that off so that it slides into our recess. And depending on how accurately you've cut these recesses, each one of these legs may need to be numbered and identified with what the recess it belongs to, because they all could potentially be different. So as you go around and fit them, number them so you know which leg goes where. So 1, 2, 4 legs fitted, and they obviously need to be connected. So the way I do it is I divide the thickness of the top into 3, and divide the leg into half, which is this line here, and then I also divide it into 3, and that lets me place 3 screws. I'd suggest those screws need to be roughly 50 as a minimum, or 65mm would be a good size screw to put into those legs. Once you've got the legs all screwed off, don't worry about planing the excess off here yet. We'll do that right at the end when all our angles are done. So all our legs are attached. We now need to concentrate on our ends. So we grab our little piece of ply. It needs to have that angle that we've been working with taken off this top edge. So we can mark that out, mark a parallel line along this edge and plane that off with a hand plane. And then it'll look like that. Then we can take the top and actually sit it hard up against the underside of the top, and we can then mark the position where our legs are going to be. One side, mark it on the other side, take it over, cut. What I would suggest is you actually cut a little bit proud of the lines, and then you use your hand plane to plane back to the line so you get a nice finish. And then I'd attach that using a minimum of 3, possibly 4 20 to 25mm screws evenly spaced down the leg, and repeat on the other end. So the next step then is to put in our little spreader in the middle. This will help to keep these legs at this angle. So first thing you need to do, grab your sliding bevel again and mark the bevel on the end of our spreader. It may be worth checking that it is still the same, and if it's not, you might have to adjust, but that angle there, all things being right, should be the same as what we previously set up. So you can mark that angle on there, and then we need to establish the length in between our two ends. So the best way to do that is with a set of what I call pinch rods, or what are called pinch rods. Now you can buy specially made pinch rods, but for most of us, 2 bits of 2 offcuts, slightly shorter than the actual length we need, can be used. And all you do is just slide them out until they hit the ends, and then you clamp them together somehow. Generally I would use a spring clamp, or even a big paper, not a paper clip, but a paper, I'm not even sure what they're called, just to hold them together so they don't move apart. And then you can bring them out to the actual spreader and transfer that length off. It's a lot more accurate than trying to measure internals with a ruler or a tape measure. And mark that out with the sliding bevel so you get the angle on both ends and cut to length. You can then drop that back into position, and what I do is I lay a ruler or some sort of straight edge against the legs, and where it hits the legs just put a mark there, and the same on the other end, and that gives me a point to start my curve. I'm just going to curve this as a bit of a feature. So once again we need to divide our spreader up, so I find half the depth, half the width, and what I do is I just tack a nail, drive a nail into there partially, and then use something that's flexible, piece of plastic, whatever you can find that you can bend, a thin piece of timber may even do it, and create something to give you an arc. and cut that out with a jigsaw or a bandsaw, whatever you have available. And that gets fixed in. Best way to fix this in is just a couple of screws in through the end. You don't want to be screwing down through the top into it, because we want to be able to, don't want to have any metal protruding into our top, just in case our saw blades hit it. So 2 screws on each end through the ends will attach that fine. If you wanted to put one in the middle, you could put one from this side, just so it goes about halfway through the top, and you don't want any more than that. So that's the saw stool pretty much done. All we need to do now is cut our legs off, and the best way to do that, I have found, is to grab a piece of offcut of ply, which is the height that you need, and as I said before, in this case 610. Sit the saw stool on a flat surface, and holding the ply vertically, just go around and mark the height off the top of the sheet. You can do one end, you can do the sides as well. Work your way round, and even though that should be the original angles that we had, if there are any discrepancies in the angle of these legs, that will compensate. And what you should end up with when you cut those off is a saw stool that sits nice and stable on the floor. I find that if you're a couple of mil off with the length of your legs, it's not too big a problem, because how many building sites do you ever get on where you got your saw stool set up on a perfectly flat surface? So, as I said before, it depends on how long you've got and how good a job you want. So that's it. That's the way I prefer to construct a saw stool.